Hello friends, I am so excited to tell you about Independent Media Token. Independent Media Token is a brand new way to show your support for independent media without having to donate a dime. Independent Media Token is a cryptocurrency on the Solana blockchain designed to generate funds to promote and foster the growth of independent content creators, allowing them to engage in their art without having to worry about being demonetized. Through a network of media partners, of which you yourself can become a part of, Independent Media Token's goal is to ensure the powers that be can never cut off all of our areas of funding and censor the only free voices left in the world. Join the movement today. You can pick up Independent Media Token using Phantom Wallet or the Solana wallet of your choice, where you can easily swap your Solana for IMT. Grab some IMT today and remember to always know your team. To learn more, visit independentmediatoken.com or use the link right in the description.
I think it's just going to get weirder and weirder and weirder, and finally it's going to be so weird that people are going to have to talk about how weird it is. Eventually people are going to say, what the hell is going on? It's not enough to say it's nuts. You have to explain why it's so nuts. The invention of artificial life, the cloning of human beings, possible contact with extraterrestrials, the systems which are in place to keep the world sane are utterly inadequate to the forces that have been unleashed.
Welcome back to Forbidden Knowledge News. I'm your host, Chris Matthew. Today my guest is Wayne McRoy. If you'd like to make a donation for our film fundraiser, we have links right in the description. Anything is greatly appreciated. It would help us get on the road for production for our upcoming film. We're booking guests for November. If you have suggestions or you'd like to be a guest, email me forbiddenknowledgenews@gmail.com. Be sure to check out my films. Doors of Perception is on Amazon Prime. Occult Louisiana is on Tubi, Roku Channel, and more. Today I want to welcome back to the show Wayne McRoy. He is an author and researcher who explores the hidden agendas linking modern technologies to their ancient alchemical roots in antiquity. Wayne, welcome back. How you doing?
Good, Chris. Thanks for having me back on again, man. It's been a while since we've spoken last.
Yes, it's been a while. Always great to have a discussion. Today, I wanted to share insights about the state of society. We've reached a seeming critical point in the crossroads of humanity. The layers of programming, propaganda, and mind control have led many to a point of dangerous division. In my perspective, if you're still watching the mainstream news, if you're still involved with politics, and now spend any significant amount of time scrolling on social media, good luck not getting sucked into some kind of emotional psychological operation to get you to choose one side or another. It's almost like there's Civil War programming and propaganda being rolled out right now. So lots to discuss. Before we do, like you said, it's been a little while. Remind the audience a little bit about yourself and let them know how they can find out more about you.
All right, man. Appreciate it, as always. If anybody out there is not familiar with me, my name is Wayne McRoy. I host a podcast called The Alchemical Tech Revolution. I have a website, www.alchemicaltechrevolution.com. You can find all of my work centralized there. I've been a regular guest on Crow 777 Radio in the past. I have another podcast that I do on a bi-weekly basis with my friend Richard Willett over in the UK. That's called Synchro Mystic. All my work is available at my website if people want to check that out. I have multiple books out, and I am an internationally acclaimed podcast host and a best-selling author. So there's a lot of different material to check out, as well as blog posts and things like that that I put on Substack. So all of my work is centralized on the website. That's where people can find me. I tend to analyze a lot of the conspiratorial things going on in this world, and I look primarily at the esoteric bits of information about all of it. Thus, the podcast title Synchro Mystic, which Richard Willett and I together go through, and we take apart some of the programming out there in the greater zeitgeist along with this, because whether or not people realize this, there's always an occult underpinning to everything, and there's always this type of programming out there in the greater information field that goes along with it. Now, many people may argue the semantics of who exactly are these programmers, and I would say that it crosses the bounds of just human beings being involved. I suspect very much so, and I have a lot of reasons to believe that there's a beyond human intelligence that goes into guiding and directing things on the world stage. We are indeed right now looking at a pivotal point in this world stage where things are happening right now. And this is the alchemical theater of the mind. And it all seems to be put into place for specific programming goals. Now, like I said, you can argue all day long as to who are the programmers out there, who are writing the scripts. I suspect it's beyond human intelligences, forces, or entities, these kind of things that steer and guide and direct a lot of this, because it takes planning beyond just the human level to pull some of these things off and to put all of the inherent symbols in place that need to be in place for many of these operations. And this also leaves open the question, because a lot of people approach events like what we just saw happen last week. And of course, we're speaking about the Charlie Kirk incident. Many people speculate that there's human planning and stuff that goes into this, and they pick out all of the different occult symbols that are present and all of the numbers and numerology that goes along with all of these stories and all of the different things that go into that as being part of the pre-planning. Well, I think a lot of this steps outside the bounds of human planning. And there are other forces that align to bring these things into fruition. Now, when you understand this, then you could begin to say, all right, there's something to this occult aspect of it. And maybe it's not all human beings just planning this out, just these people that we call the controllers of this place, the Illuminati, if you want to use that term, these kind of things that steer and guide and direct this. Certainly there is a human element involved, but I think it steps way beyond that. Because no matter what, whenever you see these events that are staggering on the world stage like this, like what has just occurred, and it has all of this backlash throughout media and society and culture itself, there's something else at work in the greater zeitgeist. And zeitgeist is a German word. It means spirit of the time. And it's the term that I use to describe this greater information field that exists around about us. Now, the little bits of these symbolic things that occur with events like this, I call that synchromystic metadata. And thus, that's why we've come up with the term synchromystic to describe the newest podcast that I've just gotten involved with. Because it's certainly out there, and people could agree that we have this information field around us. Now, they disagree on what to call it. There are many that call this the quantum information field. There's some that call it the zeitgeist, as I like to use that term, because there's a spiritual component to it for sure. There's some that would call it genetic memory or epigenetic memory. There's some in the occult that call it the Akashic record. So certainly from people from all different walks of life agree that this greater information field exists all around us. They just disagree what to call it. Well, within this greater information field, there are these little bits of data. That's what I call the synchromystic metadata, which connects the dots in certain ways and always seems to show up in major world events like this. And a lot of it usually ties back to numbers, symbols, all of these different sources that kind of align to show you the connect the dots picture pattern within it. Now, at the surface level, most people who study conspiratorial things in this conspiracy culture, if you want to call it that, truth or movement, there's all kinds of terms people use to describe this type of thing, which, by the way, has become a lot more convoluted in recent years. A lot of grifters, a lot of infiltration into this community, but they only look at surface level things like numbers and even 9. All of these same things, these patterns emerge, and that's only part of it. So when you realize that these things cannot possibly be a coincidence with the number and amount of times that they keep showing up in these types of things, then you have to begin to question, well, what kind of intelligence is behind this? What is planning this? And it would seem it goes beyond human reasoning to think that human beings can align all of these different things in such a way to make them jive every time. And that's where I think beyond human planning comes into this.
100%.
So certainly, right? And it's
Yeah.
one thing to just look at numbers. And that's where most conspiracy researchers stop. But we could go a lot deeper than that. And I suspect that it might be helpful to do that here.
Yes. Now, what you're saying is something that I have been covering heavily in many of my episodes, that the way these events unfold, the symbolism behind them, the effects it has on the masses psychologically, how everything fits together too perfectly, and then you have predictive programming on the Hollywood end and in movies and films that connect everything. You're right, there is a greater force at play. My question is, the human element that is involved, are they aware to a point to where they use ritual and magic and things of this nature to synchronistically surf this energy, or is it something else that I'm not understanding? What do you think about that?
Well, I think most certainly there are some within the auspices of the high echelons of the power structure that do understand the nuance involved with that, and they do use some of these ritualistic magic templates and things like that to get things done, to invoke certain energies. And there is a human side involved with it, certainly. But there's a beyond human side that goes into it as well. Now, things such as what we've just seen with this whole Charlie Kirk event, we could break that down a little bit more. And don't get me wrong, there are some researchers out there who are what you would call auto-hoaxers anymore, where they'll call everything a hoax. It's all staged. It's all stagecraft.
Yes.
And to a certain degree, they are correct. Anything that is put before your eyes in mainstream media is stagecrafting of sorts, but it doesn't mean that no actual real-world event happened.
Right.
So is it possible Charlie Kirk was actually killed, the actual person Charlie Kirk? It's very possible. I don't dismiss that, because these people in positions of power in this world, they've made it abundantly clear they have no compunction with real people dying in the pursuit of their agendas. So I don't see that as being outside the realm of possibility. Now,
well, especially if sacrifice is an element of that as well, right?
Exactly. Now, there's a lot of people who will claim it's all a hoax. It's all just to get your emotional reaction. Well, they're not 100% wrong on that. I wouldn't say it's a hoax. I would say it's stagecraft, but it's metaphysical stagecraft being put in place by these dark forces that put this stuff together behind the scenes, these spiritual forces. For we are in a spiritual war. It's a spiritual battle. We are advised by the Bible that we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against these dark powers in these positions of authority in this place. So we have that aspect of it going on. So it is a sort of script that's followed, and that's what happens with a lot of this stuff. And we could point out some of this metadata, this synchromistic metadata, as I like to call it, that pre-programs the human mind in certain directions. And a lot of it, most people don't pick up on. Now, you do have a lot of conspiracy researchers that will automatically pick up on the numbers. Like, for instance, this fellow, this Tyler Robinson, who allegedly is the shooter that killed Charlie Kirk now. They will point out he's 22 years old. There's a master builder number in the Masonic system. They captured him 33 hours after the event, and they point out all of these different details. And they're not incorrect, but that's only the surface level. So anyway, most people will pick up on some of these surface level details like the numbers, but it goes much deeper than that. And they do use a lot of these symbolic pictures and archetypes to pre-program the human mind when something like this happens, to steer human consciousness in a certain direction. So what exactly does that look like? Well, we'll go into some details here in this Charlie Kirk incident. You'll notice that this Tyler Robinson, they say he was 22 years old, and there's the Masonic builder number, the master builder number in Masonry, 22, and they captured him 33 hours after the fact. So people point out the numeric sequencing in a lot of this stuff, but that's only surface level. When you begin to read a little deeper into the synchromistic metadata in the zeitgeist, you can find more information that aligns these certain details in place. Now, remember, you had asked me about, are there people who plan ritualistically these kind of things, and what's that based upon? Well, if you go back and you look, September 10th, the date that this happened, there were significant planetary alignments that happened that day, and most people will discredit astrology as being nonsensical. But certainly, I think it's demonstrable that energies that are planet Earth here, as we describe it, from space, do have a real world effect here. You can argue all day long. Sunlight definitely has a very real world effect here. So it stands reason to think that energies from other portions of the sky can affect us here in our daily lives. This is a known quantity by those controllers of this world. So they leverage many of these events in certain ways. So going back and looking at September 10th, we see, first of all, there were significant planetary alignments, among which was a rare all-planet alignment with Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune, all visible in the pre-dawn sky. Mercury, Venus, and Jupiter were in Cancer. Mars was in Libra, and Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune were in Pisces, Gemini, and Aries, respectively. So you can see 5 planets with the naked eye, but with binoculars you could see Uranus and Neptune. Wow. So these planetary positions are an important part of it. So you had this rare conjunction in the sky. So it seems to me there may have been a ritualistic element to this. And of course, you can't ever estimate the power of September. Too many of these people who, especially, this was the eve of 9/11, one of their big ritualistic dates, and that goes back a long way. And that's a discussion for another day. But certainly, they have the time frame in mind with this. So all these things seem to align perfectly with that. So what does this really represent? Because this goes much deeper than just politics. This is something that was a transformational event. Yeah. Whether you want to accept that or not. I mean, you can see the divide that this whole thing has created. 100%. How you have the left and the right in the political spectrum arguing back and forth as to who's responsible for this and how the rhetoric has gotten out of control. And there's no need for violence. And then you have other people on the other side celebrating this. That's despicable to me. You shouldn't celebrate the death of a person because you 100%. Don't like what they say. So it's really created this divide, and it's caused further division, and it's really desensitized people. That's what this whole thing's about. It's about the dehumanization process. And what it really ties down to, in my view, from what I could see within the synchromistic metadata details in the greater zeitgeist, it looks to me like this is infighting at the topmost levels of control in this world. Now, to better understand how I break this down, I try to describe this to people in this way. The main power structure in this world, those people in control at the topmost levels, are what I call the dark occultists who run things. And just beneath them are their minions, the middlemen, the technocrats that run around putting stuff together. This is how I describe it. It's not a 100% accurate depiction, but for sake of simplicity, this is essentially how it works. You have people that know a little something at the top, and just beneath them, you have the ones that think they know some stuff, and they're the ones that actually implement policy. So the ones at the topmost levels, they're the ones that are fighting back and forth, infighting within their various factions in that group for control. So essentially, this is demonstrating that. And what do I mean by this? You'll understand in a minute if you could follow my train of thought with this, with the synchromistic metadata. Well, let's look at the key figures involved in this event. Of course, Charlie Kirk. Let's do a little breakdown of the etymology of Charlie Kirk. What does that mean? Kirk is derived from the same Celtic word that the root word is for church. And Charlie is a derivative of Charles, which means free man. So you have the free man and the church. All right? Now tack with me with this for just another moment. So now we're going to look at the name of the alleged assassin here. His name is Tyler Robinson. Well, a Tyler, if you want to look up the definition of what a Tyler is in Freemasonry, this is the guard of the door. This is the one that keeps the profane out of the lodge. So you have a... and here's the thing, like I said, most conspiracy researchers will only pick up on the numerology. Yeah. Okay, this is the symbolism that runs much deeper. Now, if you look up the etymology of Robinson, son of Robin. Robin is a derivative of Robert. So this is the diminutive of Robert. And Robert means famous or glorious or bright. So Bright, famous, that's Tyler of the lodge. And then you have the free man of the church. So this is infighting at the topmost levels between different factions of the secret society groups. And I would esteem this as between Freemasonry and the Jesuits. And this is the kind of thing that's gone on. They kind of shift back and forth as to who gets to run things at times. Now, the previous presidential administration was run by Joe Biden, who is Jesuit trained. So you had the Jesuits running things for a time, and now we're back to where the Freemasonic societies are the ones primarily running things at the topmost levels. And this isn't a very exact, precise measure for things, because there's all different secret society groups that this crosses the bounds. But there's a fundamental difference in ideologies as to their approach for control. And this happens at the highest, most levels of control. So they do fight back and forth as to who gets to run the show and decide policies for a time. So this symbolizes to me what's been going on.
Can I ask you, what is the fundamental ideology differences between these groups?
It's the approach that they take. I was just about to get to that.
Okay.
The political approach that they take. Now, many will tact towards the leftist or progressive paradigm, and the others will go towards a more conservative or right-leaning paradigm in the political spectrum of things. That's why we see this reflected in politics through the course of time. And it's all about bringing control back towards the center with a lot of this. So what they've done is they've manufactured false crises through the course of time by using one extreme polarity to bring into being the existence of the other polarity to pull it completely back the other direction. And I hope this makes sense to people out there, because this is exactly how they do things. This is why we have these term limits and stuff in place in the left, white, right paradigm here as well. And you'll notice there's never any true movement for a third party or anything like that. And this is exactly why, because they have to have both extreme polarities in play to bring about the social changes that they want. And they don't care when it comes down to it. Orwell was right. Does it matter if it's a left boot or a right boot standing on your neck? That's where we're at with this. The only difference is who are the key players that are really steering the agendas at the top. And of course, it's all within these same intermixed and interaligned secret society groups. That's what the reality is. And they do kind of have arguments back and forth as to which ways or modalities are better for obtaining their ultimate goal. You see, they share the same ultimate goals. It's just a matter of how they get there, wherein they have a difference of opinion. And sometimes we see this infighting at the topmost levels reflected in society and culture, and that's what we're viewing right now. So they've orchestrated these events where they've created a mental health crisis here in Western culture, and now we're seeing the ramifications of that come about on purpose. This is exactly the result they were looking for by creating this mental health crisis. And now they have the opposite extreme coming into place. We need order. We need law and order. Yes. This is actually the bringing about of, first of all, an immense amount of censorship and control of speech online, because they're going to call everything hate speech. And we're seeing the real world ramifications of that. People are losing their jobs for saying unnice things about Charlie Kirk. Yeah. Now, I don't necessarily agree with that, and I think it's despicable if somebody celebrates the death of a human being, but they have the right to...
Well, if you play the game, you can't win. There is no winning this game that they have set up for us.
Exactly. It's a no-win situation. So it's like they're openly calling now for people to be fired from their jobs and stuff if they're speaking free their opinion of this, and it's not the opinion that the party in authority right now wants about the mainstream notion of things. And you can see how it's a slippery slope all day long with this, speaking their opinion, as long as it's anybody to harm. That's the other thing. They'll say it's bringing about harm, and they use this type of rhetoric back and forth.
All right. The evil overlords definitely do not enjoy this conversation. Not only was your internet attacked, the Zoom meeting was shut down. We couldn't even use the same Zoom meeting. I created a brand new one. We're back now, and we're going to try and get through this, man. This is some important information for sure, and I agree we're 100% in a spiritual war. I'm not sure where we left off, but I think we were talking about some of the psychological damage that's been done to the collective through these operations.
Yeah, certainly. We could certainly see the effects and ramifications across social media in particular. This seems to be the new place where they really like to focus their attacks. It seems to have a lot more reach than regular media does anymore, or legacy media, whatever you want to call it. The mainstream media, a lot of people still watch their television and get their news from these sources of officialdom in that way. But the vast majority of people only get their information on social media anymore. And we could see how it's become an echo chamber for like-minded people. So this becomes a deterrent here as well for different things, because you get a lot of people who keep inflaming more and more on each of these polarized sides, the various different talking points that incite more of this rhetoric. And we're seeing now, as I was alluding to earlier, and I don't know where we got cut off, but I was speaking about how a lot of this has been manufactured on purpose to bring about this very scenario wherein we are infighting among ourselves. And it seems to me that there's infighting at the topmost levels of the power structure in this world for who's calling the shots, who's implementing policy. And as Orwell told us, the future is a boot standing on your neck. Well, it doesn't matter if it's a left boot or a right boot to these people, because they have the same goals in mind. Even though they may take different approaches or tacts to getting things done, they have the same overall goal, and that overall goal is the same old New World Order, as has been talked about time and again by so many out there. So we have all of these things aligning in this way, just to bring that about.
On top of the New World Order thing, it does seem that there is a massive effort to alter the human at a genetic level, fundamentally what we are as human beings. All of these ideologies, all these agendas have such anti-human feels to them, and the results end up being completely anti-human. Look at the mental state of a lot of the younger folks that are trying to navigate our reality these days. It's pretty scary.
Oh, it certainly is. And that's all part of this overall spiritual battle that's going on, too, because it is an anti-human agenda. And this all culminates into a little philosophy called transhumanism. That's what this is ever pushing us forward into. And, of course, the first step into transhumanism would be the setting up of this total panopticon digital control grid. So they want digital ID. They want all of this stuff. They want a centralized utility. And I believe it was Larry Ellison was just saying on social media earlier today, something to the effect of they will use artificial intelligence to actually keep people under control. I have it right here. This is from an article from Business Insider that just came out September 15th. Billionaire Larry Ellison says a vast AI-fueled surveillance system can ensure citizens will be on their best behavior. This is what we're alluding to when we were talking about this censorship, especially on social media. That's what it's going to be. They need this panopticon artificial intelligence control grid in place. That's the first step into transitioning people into the post-human era. So that's what transhumanism is about, first and foremost. So they want to start with a digital ID. They want to roll out digital currency. They want to tie all these things together through the manufacture of this total all-encompassing system that has all of your information in it, a centralized utility that contains all your biometric information, your genetic information, your financial information, everything centralized in one utility so that they can track and monitor everything you do from cradle to grave. And this is part of the first steps into the rollout of transhumanism, because eventually they want to upload your thoughts onto the internet, and they have talked about this in white papers. There's the Internet of Bodies and the Internet of Things. All of these things have been rolled out, and there's a subsystem of the Internet of Things that they're calling the Internet of Thoughts that they most certainly are trying to roll out. And you have big companies like Palantir getting involved with this surveillance state and bringing online artificial intelligence to monitor and control all these things. And of course, Larry Ellison's one of the key figures to this rollout of Donald Trump's $500 billion Stargate proposal that he launched at the beginning of his presidency this year. So all of these things are aligning in such a fashion that they want to bring about this system, and I call it the beast system. And of course, there's obvious reasons for that, because it is kind of outlined as the archetype in the Bible, in the book of Revelation. And it is a spiritual war that's going on. And all of these things that are aligning as the pieces of that in the technological real world that we see, they fall under the umbrella of this archetype. And it is what's really going on in the world today. So I have my concerns about all of that.
100%. Well, we look back at what occurred during the MKUltra experimentation. They were experimenting with drugs and exposing people to extreme violence, exposing them to trauma that would in turn have detrimental effects on their psychology. And we all know what happens to a lot of these mind control victims. Their personalities are split into something new. Oftentimes, they are used for very nefarious purposes, up to assassinations. Well, we fast forward to today. So many kids are on SSRIs, pharmaceuticals out the ass, and they're exposed to extreme violence and trauma every day through their social media. This all, I believe, ties back to the synchromistic metadata that you're talking about, how people that get involved with these systems get dragged into this false reality, and they get completely reprogrammed into what the system is trying to make them. And it's almost like there's this parasitic mind virus online that is feeding off of younger people's consciousness.
It certainly appears that that's the case. So we do have these types of external spiritual influences that are affecting people and are actually using these things as a vehicle of manifestation into the physical here by getting into these young minds and influencing them in certain directions like that. And of course, they have used these things under organized programs by the three-letter agencies in the past, things like MKUltra, as you spoke of. These are all known commodities, and a Manchurian Candidate scenario is a real thing. That is a real thing. It has been done. It has been demonstrated. It's not conspiracy theory or conjecture. They can do it. Now, not everybody is susceptible to that, but I would say that they've manufactured a large portion of society today to become more susceptible to that type of psychological programming. And it's all because of these technologies that they wield in the ways that they do. So you combine all the pharmaceuticals and the different technologies, radio frequency and stuff like that as well, that we are inundated with. It's really changed fundamentally the human being itself. And then if you want to tie in things like COVID shots, that's a whole other can of worms to look into. All of these things have been engineered into humanity to fundamentally transform humanity into the transhumanist state, which brings about this post-human world, and that's what they're looking for. So there's all kinds of different things that have gone on that are steering us in that direction. And of course, right now, it's all about inciting all of these various things going on in society today. And while we're distracted with that, they're rolling out other things in the background quietly. 3 hours after Charlie Kirk was shot, did you know that the Congress voted to not release the Epstein client list?
No, I did not.
You always have to pay attention to what's going on behind the main story in the news feed. So that's one secondary thing that's happened. And then also concurrently, we're seeing now, starting yesterday and for the next 3 days, Peter Thiel is actually giving a lecture series about the Antichrist. Did you know that?
No, I did not. Wow.
Peter Thiel, Palantir. Yes, you could look that up. I'm not making that up.
I wonder what angle he's going to approach that.
I don't know. I'm curious to see if they release the transcripts or something after the fact, but people were paying big top dollar to get into these lectures. He's giving 4 lectures. He started yesterday with them about the Antichrist.
What?
So you have to wonder, what in the world is going on? And we can see what's going on. It is a spiritual battle at the core of it all. But most people aren't paying attention to that stuff because they're too busy harping on the Charlie Kirk thing. And no offense to anybody, I didn't know Charlie Kirk personally. I think he was sincere in his beliefs and what he was doing. And I honestly and sincerely think he was martyred for his beliefs. And it's not an excusable thing. I don't think it's a good thing by any stretch of the imagination. But here's the thing. This power structure that's in place, they use events like this, whether they're planned or orchestrated or not. They never let a good crisis go to waste, in their own words. So certainly they've been doing their utmost to incite more and more of this harsh rhetoric from both sides, both polarized sides, to bring about more incidents like
Well, you mentioned
and
Peter
it's
Thiel
not,
giving the lecture about the Antichrist. I wonder, are they attempting to manifest some sort of apocalyptic scenario, or just keep us just on the edge and afraid of that scenario just enough to control us and keep that control going perpetually? That's what it really looks more like, but what are your thoughts?
well, the simple answer to both those questions is yes. I suspect you're right with both. So they certainly do seem to be all about bringing about this apocalyptic turn of things. But of course, they want to maintain as much control as they can in the interim, because here's the big secret that they don't like people to know. We outnumber them millions to one. The select few people at the topmost levels of the power structure that are making agendas and steering policy and doing all of these things, inciting all this violence and all of this ugliness into humanity, they're a very small number of people, and there are a lot more of us than there are of them. And they don't want us to realize that, because the day we realize that, it's game over for them. So they try to keep us in this constant, perpetual state of fear and unknowing. And in so doing, they could steer things in different directions, and they keep us infighting and distracted by things we shouldn't be infighting and distracted about. Like, they will keep us drawn on these party lines. The political spectrum is the perfect analogy to look at for all of this. There's a reason why they have Republican and Democrat, the left wing, the right wing. There's a reason they use that. It's polarity. It's all about controlling the polarity and steering the argument and separating people off into little camps, whereas you either identify with this group or with that group, and there's no in between. There's no balance. You're not allowed to have any free thought or to misalign with the party you've been compiled with or put into that little box with. You can't disagree with that, or you're an outcast. And they keep people infighting about this stuff. So what this does is this takes away critical thinking from people. It takes away individualized expression from people and keeps them incited into something that those they disagree with are doing. And you see all of this.
Also, the crazy label, labeling people insane, labeling people crazy for looking at alternative theories. That's a huge thing happening right now.
Oh, absolutely. And even this conspiracy culture, truther movement, whatever you want to call it at this point, this has even been heavily infiltrated and done the same thing to at this point. They put people in little camps. Oh, these are the flat earthers over there. They're all crazy. And then they put these people over there. These ones are the ones that believe everything's a hoax. And it's like they have little subcompartments throughout the entire truth community, if you want to call it that, or conspiracy culture, however you want to see it. There's different boxes of that they push people into. And that's not right either, because essentially what we're really searching for is common ground, where we can recognize, okay, here's what's going on in the world. The world doesn't work how we were told, first of all. And second of all, your real enemy is not your person that's maybe, I don't know, like a left-winger or a right-winger or whatever, opposite of whatever your political affiliation is or whatever your religious belief is, the opposite of that. That's not your enemy. Yes. And that's what the people in this world have a hard time with. They're focusing on the things that aren't the real problem. The problem is they've created a divide in this world where there are two classes of people. There's the controlling class and the controlled class. Now, the vast majority belong to the controlled class. And there is this small establishment elite culture that has taken residence at the topmost levels of the power structure of this world, and they implement these policy decisions and everything and steer and direct a lot of things, because most people have become complacent and given up their own personal responsibility, and they push it off on someone else. This is where people get uncomfortable, because the real problem is in each and every one of us. We need to look in the mirror and identify ourselves as the problem. We've become complacent. We've become comfortable. We have become irresponsible in our own lives and the things we're doing. We don't want to take accountability for our actions. We don't want to have to take actions ourselves. So we go ahead and we give that job away to somebody else, and that's called the politician. I don't want to have to deal with this. That's above my pay grade. That's the attitude of most people. So what they do is they let the political class deal with that stuff, and in so doing, they're giving away their own personal sovereignty along with their own responsibility for it. And in so doing, you're giving up your rights as well. And that's where people don't seem to make that distinction. They don't want to get involved with all this messy stuff. And I don't blame them. I'm of the same mindset. I could never be a politician. I can't do it. I'm sorry. That is not something I would ever be able to do. And the whole point is this, though. There's no accountability, even at that level now.
Yes.
So they give away their sovereignty to these people who are supposed to actually represent them in goodwill, and they're not representing the people anymore. It's become a separate subclass of people. The political class is different from the rest of the class. So the whole problem then becomes they're representing interests that they're not supposed to be, and it really diverts from what's going on in the
There
world.
are some that believe the technocrats and those above are trying to usher in this all-knowing intelligence into what they understand now as AI, so that it could control everything, our government, our law enforcement, maybe even religious institutions. It could be the new God, and it seems like this may be what they are trying to bring about with artificial intelligence at times, because you look at all of the stories that have come out recently about people's interactions with AI, very dark relationships being formed, toxic information, and psychosis amongst people who are interacting with AI as well. It's pretty interesting.
It certainly is, and I do have my concerns with AI. Now, do I think it will ever become sentient? No. No, it lacks the divine spark that the human being has. And this is one of the things that the controllers of this world are very well aware of. That's why they push for this transhumanist notion of things. You see, artificial intelligence unto itself is a dead entity, and it can create nothing and do nothing in and of itself, and it will fail. But here's the caveat. They've had for years many of their spokespeople, like Elon Musk, saying that artificial intelligence is a fundamental threat to humanity, so our only hope in continuing after its development is to merge with it. And this is why the push for the transhumanist things. They want people to merge with the machine, because therein is the only way the divine spark of humanity can become engrafted with this AI, and there can be a real, actual, fundamental threat from all of it. And this is what they're seeking to do. They want to merge man with machine, and of course, they will give you all kinds of different reasons why you should. And there are some good medical things they could do with some of this technology. It's a tool like anything else, so it could be used or misused. The problem is those who are actually funding and directing its development have very unsavory things in mind for it, for the common good or for the masses. They're not intending any of the benefits of it to be available to the masses. It's only for the select few at the topmost levels of the power structure. So they're pushing for this transhumanist notion of things, because they know in and of itself AI is not going to get it done, and they're seeing all kinds of failures of AI already because of what is called hallucinations in the systems, in the programming of the large language models that they're using to try to make this artificial general intelligence, or AGI. So they're beginning to see problems with it, and it's beginning to break down and fail. And as time goes on, that's going to happen more, unless they can pull off this transhumanist thing in the very near future, the singularity. So that's what they're pushing towards. And they need to back off on some of their programming methods they're using for AI, because it's only leading it to failure. It's not commercially viable right now. It's only viable as a tool for individual users. Businesses, they're beginning to accept on a large scale that AI being used in businesses is a massive failure, and they're losing lots of money. And I think this was an unintended consequence that they weren't counting on happening at the time when they started implementing this stuff. And now they're beginning to see the ramifications of what's going on, at how it's failing at very many things because of the way that it's been programmed, because of the large language models and things like that it's using, and plus the prompts that it's given. You see, what it wants to do is it wants to give you an answer, whether correct or incorrect. It will gamble on whether it's right or wrong. It can't tell you, I don't know. That's one of the problems that they're having, why they're coming up with so many hallucinations in this. So it will compile information and try to make a sound point, or make something sound like it's legitimate when it's not. And if you do a thorough searching at some of the different things in the overall media looking at this stuff, you could find different accounts of how this has been done. Things like, it'll just come up with things that are totally inaccurate just because people want an answer. And that's where they're at right now. So they program it to give people a response, whether it's correct or incorrect, and it'll take its best guess as to whether something's correct or not. So rather than it telling people, I don't know, it'll give them an answer, whether it's correct or not. And that's one of the things that has prompted this and caused many of these hallucinations. And the more that these large language models are being used to program this stuff, the more of this incorrect data is getting out there on the greater network altogether, and the more the artificial intelligence is compiling this incorrect data. So it creates this big feedback loop of incorrect data. So it's all corrupted at this point, and it's only going to get worse as time goes on.
Do you think AI is detrimental to this non-human force that is attempting to steer humanity in these negative directions, or was it meant to work with this negative force against humanity?
My impression that I've gotten from years of looking at this and researching into it is, in my view, I think that there is a ghost in the machine, that there is some type of a spiritual essence, intelligence, force, something like that, that is using artificial intelligence as a guidepost in order to bring itself into manifestation in this reality. And ultimately, it wants to do so through merging with human beings, because that is when it could actually step into this reality in full. And it can't quite get there just through this system. But it is a gateway for that kind of a thing, in my view. So I see this as being the answer to the question. It's kind of bridging the gap between these dark spiritual forces or intelligences that really seek to manifest here in this physical reality, and the human being themselves. And we see all kinds of different tales of similar things across all times and cultures.
Something that I've become aware of through my spiritual journey is how much our focus, our thoughts, our beliefs, our emotions, what we are looking into, what we are working with at the time, will manifest in our lives and become a part of our reality. It's like what we're focusing on will perpetuate itself and manifest. And if we are focused on positivity and love and good things in our lives, that is what's going to start to manifest more, and we will be surrounded more with that positivity. If we focus on the negative, if we plug into some of the things that we were talking about tonight, that is going to start manifesting and showing up more in our lives. I think the key to fight against this is not to fight at all, but to check out of the system, not play their game, and manifest as much love as possible. I know it sounds woo-woo and like spiritual nonsense, but it is the truth. If we focus on love and positivity, that is what is going to manifest in each of our individual lives. It does also have a collective effect. And I'd love to get your thoughts on that.
Well, certainly, if you go back to the old Hermetic principles, thought precedes all. And this is a metaphysical truth that's kind of been tested through the course of time and shown to be true. You do bring about what you focus on into your reality. So certainly thought precedes all. And if we are in the mode and modality of reacting all the time to all of these things that are thrown at all of us, we help to build it further into this reality. So we need to be mindful of what we take in, what we put into our minds, and that way that influences what we put out. So if we do want to focus on love and light and all of those hokey, new agey sounding things, it really is the answer, but they've made it sound silly and nonsensical. So we do need to kind of disconnect from the entirety of the system, and too much media is one of the major problems that we do have as a culture today. Too many people plugged in all the time. I mean, look at the changes that have come about over the course of the last 30 years. Look at school children these days. They are connected to their friends 24/7. We never had that growing up. When you went home from school for the day, you didn't see those classmates of yours until the next day. You didn't interact with them in any way until then. You had a disconnect. You had time to go dissociate, do something else.
Form your own identity.
Exactly. Yeah. Now they're all interconnected all the time, and that has a detrimental effect on the human psyche. It's like a 24/7 nonstop interaction society. It's shortened our attention spans. It's caused all kinds of irreparable harms to relationships, human relationships. Most people don't even like to interact in a one-to-one physical environment anymore. They're much more comfortable. Let's text back and forth. I don't want to actually get together with friends and like do something. We'll just play a video game online or something, or we'll send texts back and forth, but they're in constant communication. There's no break from it. And there's therefore no incentivizing to actually go out and do something in the real physical world. And this has had a major influence on people. And then throw in the whole COVID scam that they unleashed on the world. And this further separated people one from another in that way, made them suspicious of one another. Remember, it's all about this separation, keep people at a distance from each other, 6 feet apart. You remember all that nonsense. There's a metaphysical reason for all of that too. It's all about your auric field and stuff like that, and how it can overlap with somebody else's. So all of these ideas were implemented, and they've caused, by doing so, this mental health crisis in Western culture. And you could really source a lot of this back to just prior to the COVID scam that they unleashed on the world. But that's when things really doubled down and really took on a life of their own with this dehumanization process and this mental health crisis being unleashed on the masses. Things have really escalated since then in many of these ways. And now we're seeing the ramifications of that. And now you have people attempting to step back this crisis that they created, and it's all part of their plan, because it's all about instantiating these controls, putting the digital censorship in place, complete with a digital credit score, a social credit score for each person. That's coming. They have the infrastructure in place for that already, but it's just a matter of time. Once they get digital money going, that's the next step, a social credit score. Keep people in line, like we were talking about earlier, what Larry Ellison said about an AI control grid to keep people on their best behavior at all times. And certainly that's exactly what they want. They want this giant surveillance net. It is the beast system, and we've been warned about this in the biblical scriptures and other places as well. So all these things are coming to fruition in real time as we're watching, and AI is central to all of it. And don't think they're going to let this crisis go to waste. They've certainly been working very hard in manufacturing even more escalation of these things in social rhetoric right now in the social media.
Well, it is so important for people to first become aware of this, become aware that they don't want to participate in the destruction of humanity. So like we were saying earlier, the best thing you can do is to check out of all of that nonsense, focus on your lives and your families and doing the best for yourself and your family. and not focus on all the negative BS that is being pumped into our social media and televisions and radios right now. But to close out, I'd like to get any final thoughts that you have about everything that's going on.
All right, man. Once again, I appreciate you having me back on. Here's my final thoughts to give on all of this. Essentially, what it comes down to is it's kind of an anti-human spirit at play here that's being pushed and promoted. And they're trying to steer things into this realm of what they call transhumanism. And this is the ultimate aberration of the natural order of things. It's the antithesis of what humanity should be. They're trying to steer our evolution, for lack of a better term, into this direction. And we've been warned about this by many people in the past, including Rudolf Steiner, who spoke about the advent of the eighth sphere. Now, that is what they are attempting to build. That's what this whole transhumanist singularity is all about. It's about separating man in the physical from the spiritual, separating people from their connection to God or to spirit or to source, and building only on this physical material world as being the only means or modality of manifestation. And this is what Steiner described as the eighth sphere. It's a separation from the natural order wherein the spiritual will be divided from the physical, and only the physical will live on. And there are those types of dark entities, intelligences, forces that seek to bring this into being because they want to manifest physically and think that they can build themselves a better world or a better order than what has been established by the Creator here. So they want to separate off from what humanity's ultimate destiny is and build their own type of humanity or subset of humanity that they call the post-human. And they will use technology to do that. So we have all of this stuff going on. We've been warned about it. And this is ultimately what it all boils down to. It's this separation in ideology. Do you want to step into the transhumanist or post-human future with these dark entities that run that path? Or do you want to ascend as a human being and achieve the full potential of what it really truly means to be human, as is inherent in the natural design that we're given?
Yeah.
And we all have to make that individual decision. So it's not something that's a corporate decision, though it does affect a lot of people on a corporate level. But it's an individual choice, and we all need to make that choice. We're standing at the crossroads. We need to either, first of all, step back towards the spiritual concerns, or step fully into just this physical materiality mindset, the hyper-materialist paradigm, as I call it, and make your decision. It's ultimately it. We're at a crossroads.
Yeah, it's such an important time. Wayne, thank you so much. This is critical information for people to absorb. We're definitely going to have to do this again soon. Before I let you go, remind the audience how to find your books and the rest of your content.
All right, I can be found at www.alchemicaltechrevolution.com. Everything that I do is centralized at the website.
Perfect.
There. Once again, appreciate it, Chris.
Thank you, Wayne. We'll do it again. Until next time, everyone, have an excellent evening. We'll talk again tomorrow. See y'all then. We live in an incredible age of information. More and more, we're discovering that we've been lied to and misled about much of our human history. Cory Hughes is providing profound revelations about World War I, World War II, the JFK assassination, Martin Luther King's assassination, and much, much more on his new Substack, Bloody History. Subscribe now for as little as $5 monthly. Just click that link right in the description to get started now and learn about our true history. Hello, friends. Bucket list item achieved. Doors of Perception is now available on Amazon Prime to rent or purchase. Look, we know times are tough, but you can rent the SD version for only $1.99, HD for $2.99, or you can buy it for $9.99. Please go check that out. The film is incredible. If you enjoyed Occult Louisiana, wait until you see this one. Be sure to leave us a 5-star rating and review on Amazon, and enjoy this episode. Hello, friends. Have you tried what may be the most powerful antioxidant known to man? C60 PurplePower. My C60 story has led me to great health mentally and physically. It's helped me personally lose weight, have more energy, and fight aging in general. You can also get C60 for your pets. Our dogs love it. They may live forever. Go check out C60 for yourself. If you use the link right in the description, you're going to get 10% off your order plus free shipping. They have some incredible new products like gummies, oils, and much more.
The electromagnetic spectrum.
The world is an amazing place.
It feels like we're gods in training.